Of race in college admissions and public school enrollment, breaking from Obama-era affirmative action policies. The White House saying the previous federal guidance went beyond what the Supreme Court has ruled on the issue. With that, we bring in Lawrence Jones, editor-in-chief of Campus Reform, and Capri Cafaro, executive-in-residence at American University School of Public Affairs, former Ohio State Senate Minority Leader. Nice to see both of you. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Happy 4th.
All wearing red for the 4th of July. I didn't get the memo. Betsy DeVos, the Education Secretary, saying in a statement, schools should continue to offer equal opportunities for all students while abiding by the law. Lawrence, hard to imagine that that is controversial.
Yeah, Leland, there's no doubt that when affirmative action policies were put in place, it was there to protect people of color from a historical perspective that were targeted and weren't able to go to these universities. But things have changed, and the fact that a law that was once out there to protect black people is now targeting Asian people, I think that's concerning. That's just from a legal standpoint. There's also something to be said, though, Leland, from just as an African American, as a black man, that somehow that the standards have to be lowered for us. And quite frankly, I don't like that, and I think many in my community don't like that, and I think we want to be judged by our merit because we preach every day that we're strong people, that our history is a part of our strength.
Capri, is there a point now that Lawrence brings up that affirmative action is something that was perhaps necessary or perhaps needed at a certain time, and now it's the time for it to leave?
Look, I mean, I think that there's no question that, affirmative action was, conceived at a time where it was absolutely necessary. Yes, things have changed, but, I think right now the way that affirmative action is utilized is more about just having diversity as one of many factors, not necessarily lowering standards. Certainly I don't think that's anyone's intention.
Capri, I guess it's a more fundamental question, though. What is the problem? And the left seems to have a big problem with this. Just read some civil rights groups losing their minds. What is the problem with saying, very simply, race should not play any role in any decision, period?
Well, I think that the concern is that if it's not part of the discussion, that we're basically, whether it's true or not, I think the concern is that, essentially we're devaluing diversity in some way, shape, or form. Now, is that practically true? No,
Capri,
maybe not.
Capri, you just said if it's true or not. Is it true or not? That's the question to you.
Well, again, I think that the concern, amongst some, including like the ACLU, is that if you take this out of if you take the discussion of race and diversity out of the decision-making process, the concern becomes that, some way, shape, or form, you're devaluing, the role of diversity and how that, shapes, our culture in the United States, that we place value in, all sorts of people.
Capri,
now, let me
I'm up
say
against
this.
a hard break. I got to give Lawrence the last word. Lawrence, is it a valid concern?
Let me just interject. Yeah, Leland, here's the problem. It's not just race. We just reported on this at Campus Reform, that is also gender as well. The Department of Education has several civil rights investigations where Title IX, where men were being discriminated because they were women and women were getting special treatment. So this is race, this is gender, and this whole diversity conversation is getting very muddy, and you're targeting individuals.
Agreed. Well, if I may just interject here, Lawrence, really quickly, on the issue of what's come out of the Trump administration. My understanding from some of the reports that I've read is that, essentially universities like, for example, Harvard, that I know has been embroiled in some things, but they basically have said, we're not going to change our practices. It's not necessarily going to have any practical implications in the immediate term. It's basically, asserting, sort of where the Trump administration stands. I think where this really is going to come into play is what's going to happen in the Supreme Court. I think this is signaling that, maybe the Supreme Court will ultimately, with a new appointee,
Capri, Lawrence, appreciate
get rid of affirmative action. We'll see.
Well, for sure. And we now have a Supreme Court justice pick coming up. More on that in a minute. Appreciate you guys being here. Thanks. Molly?
Thank you.
We are celebrating our nation's independence all day here on Fox News Channel.